Kathy Grant and Ron Fletcher have been professional colleagues and personal friends for over 50 years. Both 84 at the time of this taping, they are the two oldest remaining master teachers to have studied directly with Joseph and Clara Pilates in the original New York studio. Their influence on the Pilates world cannot be overstated. Recorded in October 2005 at New York University, this video presents an unscripted, intimate, and often very moving conversation between two old friends. In the memories, stories, and reflections they share, we are invited to peek back through history's keyhole for a unique glimpse into the lives, the personalities, the work, and the genius of Joseph and Clara Pilates.
Well, Kathy, darling, God love you. It's so wonderful to be sitting here with you today. I've been looking forward to this for a long, long time. It's my pleasure and it's my honor. And when I said to you a while ago that I had a very strong remembrance yesterday that it quite touched me. I hadn't been to New York for a while, and my friend and I were walking down Fifth Avenue from the museum, from the Metropolitan, walking down Fifth Avenue, and suddenly I see Henri Bendel, which is now moved over to there, and I remembered it hit me so strongly. My first meeting you and first being aware of who you were and what you were doing when you were working at Bendel next door there, and it came back to me so strongly that I could remember that space, going up into that space, and it was very closed. It was very closed in, and
no windows.
And no windows, and
checkerboard covered floor.
But it really
checkerboard ceiling. She lowered the ceiling, so I never could do any of the
right.
The gym things, you know.
Yeah,
I could never do them at Bendel. No.
Well, that came back to me so strongly, those early days, and along with that came back the very strong memories of the studio, and my first going to the studio. And I remember our discussions about our knee problems, and that Joe never looked at our knees. Where I used to say to him, and of course, when he would put. We've talked about this. He said, "Put your here, sit here," and he would put his finger here to roll back, and don't step on my finger, in order to get all the vertebrae down, and I would say, but my knee. I kept pointing to my knee. He didn't give a damn about my knee. He just was concerned about getting centered on there. Something else that you said that and I'd like you to talk more about that, because I haven't heard this, and I don't think many people know. You said that when you first started with Joseph, that he didn't let you on the reformer right away.
That's right.
Now, tell us about that.
Well,
because
I didn't. The thing about it was that I had a knee injury, and in those days they didn't have physical therapy. They didn't even have sports medicine. No. That would come much later. So they didn't know anything about dancers. And so they didn't have any solution to my knee problem. And Pearl Lang, remember Pearl Lang, who was a dancer with Martha Graham, I ran into her at a ballet class, and every time I did a deplie, the tears would come down. And so she said, "Stop. I don't want to see you in this studio anymore. I want you to go to Joe Pilates." And so I said, "Who's Joe Pilates?" "That's all right." She gave me the address, which was on 8th Avenue between 57 and 56. And so I went there, and she said, no, she said, "He will make you dance again." You know? So being stupid, I thought, I'm going to go there, and he's going to make me dance, you know, like that. You know? So when I went to him, He said, "You don't know how to walk. You don't know how to stand." He made me stand both feet on the floor, don't move. And maybe it was only a few seconds, but it seemed like hours. And he said to me, "One day, when you get older, you will appreciate that you know how to stand on both feet." And that's true. It's true. I can take the subway all the way home and stand, and no problem. Okay? The next thing he did was made me walk. And he said, "Pretend that you have a string on one foot and a string on the other foot, and you pull the string." So he made me do that. And I was really very angry because that's not how I thought I was going to dance. And so I finally said to him, "Well, what's this has to do with the dance?" And he asked me these questions. He said, "Can you run for the bus?" I said, "Oh, no." No. "You know the big step on the bus?" He said, "Can you make the big step?" I said, "No, Mr. Pilates." And everything he asked me, I said, "No." "Can you run up your stairs?" He said, "No." He said, "Well, how can you dance? If you can't do everyday, ordinary things, how do you expect to dance?" So the only reason that I didn't walk and leave the whole thing, one, because I trusted Pearl Lang, and two, I was brought up to respect older people. Today the kids will walk out, but I was taught that they have some sense and they have this and other. And so he didn't put me on the machine. However, he had a hand, a healing hand. Really. All he did was massage my leg, and he had such a wonderful, strong, but, gentle.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's all he did in the beginning. I didn't go on. Then I did leg lifts and strengthening and so forth and so on. And he got my leg, because my leg had 2 operations in less than a year with no rehab. And so it was a pretty miserable little leg. It was much bigger than my arm. That's how it atrophied. And he really got this, this leg really good. And after I got really strong and where I didn't need him, then he sent me into the big studio.
So, well, that's, this is very interesting because you're the first one who ever spoke to me about having Joe have you stand first.
That's what he did.
And
stand, walk.
Right. Well, you see, I think that's such a wonderful thing. And I started doing that when I started teaching myself because it made, I like to feel centered kind of on my 2 feet before I got onto the reformer. However, he didn't do that with me. But what you're talking about, that was an affirmation for me of what I believed. But of course, coming from Martha too, we had to do that very, very much, just stand still on 2 feet. And Martha used to say, as you're probably sure you know, it takes 5 years to learn to walk, 10 years to learn to run, 15 years to learn how to stand still. And it really does make sense. But when I first went to Joe, like with you, going into that building, I'll never forget that building, that creaky old elevator.
You didn't think you were going to make it?
The elevator. And then I got up into the studio.
And it was
there was, well, no, it looked weird to me, because
the chair.
I thought, well, this thing, and they had the big claw feet. And then there was what looked to me like a guillotine, the tower.
It was.
And then the electric chair, I still call it the electric chair. And somebody was lying, there was a body lying under the guillotine. So coming from the, the immaculate, just all white of the dance studio, it just seemed weird to me. And they were not exactly boiling over with friendly looks. They were just there, and very much there. But when Joe, he'll come over here, and I remember him sitting me on the reformer, and then having me roll back, and he didn't want to hear about my knee, and I got back on the thing, and he said, "Do you feel like you're on your center? Do you feel like you're on your center?" And I said, "Well, I don't know." And as you know, from working with an injury, your body changes its whole position and tries to adjust and pull away from the injury. So what felt like proper alignment to me, of course, was not. And I said, "Well, I think I am." "Well," he said, "you're not." So he took my hips, which were much smaller than they are now, and he just picked my butt up, and he went, boom. I said, now you're centered.
Well, one of the things that you had to learn about Mr. Pilates, I think there was somewhat of a language barrier, and there was somewhat of a misunderstanding in some of what he said. But he would say, "That's good,"
Yeah.
or "That's bad,"
Yeah.
but he never said was good or bad about it.
Right.
So enough goods and enough bads gave you a sense of what was good to him and what was bad, because he never said that's bad because your head is down, or that's bad.
Right.
And so you remembered what the good was.
Yeah.
You really did, so that you could repeat it. But I went to him in the evenings in the beginning because I worked for Carola Trier, who was a disciple of his. And he wasn't good in the evening. Well, none of us are good in the evening if you do this work, right? I mean, you don't have the same inspiration and openness. But when I started going to him early in the morning, like I started going to him at 7 o'clock in the mornings, then he was full of life, you know what I mean? And I noticed by the time the afternoons or late evening, he didn't have the same, which I know I'm the same way today. I'm much better in the mornings. But I don't think he paid too much attention to me in the beginning. I can't say why, but he didn't. But I so loved his work, and I just was there, and I just did it, and gradually he noticed me.
Yeah.
You know, I don't see without my glasses, so I never wear. So I wasn't aware of if he made faces or if he liked what I did. There was just a sense that he didn't pay that much attention to me as he did to my young lady that we went to together, to him. And but I just stayed with it. Was such enthusiasm. It really felt good, especially since I wasn't able to dance because of work, not so much because of injury. And then he began to notice me, and then he began to give me more things to do, or you know, in the vocabulary. And so, as a matter of fact, I would stay so long, he'd say, "Go, get out." And I thought that was terrible, because I thought the longer I stayed, the better he said, "No, so much time for this and so much time for that, and you don't overdo it."
Yeah.
And then he said, I took too long to do everything. And I thought, well, what's he talking about? Because I was so, you know, everything.
Yeah.
And he made me do all of those exercises in 40 minutes. 40 minutes.
He never had.
No, because you're supposed to segue. See, if you really know it, before you finish the 100, you're ready to do the roll-ups. If you don't know what
the
you're doing,
way it's choreographed,
you stop. But this is what I remember. He used to get angry because the pictures were there. The pictures were there, okay? And so people would get up, because let's say they forget the short spinal, and they get up and look at it, okay? Or they forget the mat, and they get off and look at it. So what he did was, he covered them. He covered all the pictures. And that didn't work. Then he put a big blackboard with the names of the thing. Yeah. And he thought that from the machine you could see, but people would get up and look at it. Yeah. So no matter what he did, they got up and looked at it. So he gave it up, and he just said, you know.
It was a very unique place, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
You know.
But
yes,
the thing, the other thing,
us,
you know what you had to do, and people don't do it anymore. You had to take a cold shower.
Oh.
Did you do that?
Oh,
you
my
had,
God,
before
I'll never
you
forget
left,
it.
Right?
Not only that, but with that scrub brush.
Oh. You had to take a cold shower.
And he used to stand there. I don't know about how he did with the women, but he made me, well, for a period of time, he was very intrigued with me as a young man dancer, but he also used to say, "You don't need to go over there to that crazy lady, to Mother. I make you a dancer," he said. So he would give me the full treatment, including, but all the time I was going through the work, I kept thinking, "Oh God, I hope he forgets the shower. I hope he forgets the shower." But he made us, the men, with a scrub brush, the kind you scrub the floor. And I would stand in that shower, and he would stand out there and make me scrub myself all over with that. Now, there's no question about, but you know, that brings blood to the skin, it brings oxygen, it does all of those things. But it was one of the most painful things I've ever gone through in my life.
You had to take a cold shower.
And he would stand there and make me go through that. Then at one point he stopped doing that.
Yeah.
He kind of lost interest in me. And,
well, he just stopped doing it. I don't remember people talking about the shower. I know you couldn't leave when I went to him. You could not leave without the cold shower.
Yeah, well, he never
but
let
subsequent,
me, He never let me leave without it.
No,
but
I think it disappeared.
Yeah, it disappeared. Yeah. Well, I think it's because, of course, during the time that I was there, I think he was going through a very bad time of disappointment.
Yes, he was.
And a little resentment, some anger, you know, that he wasn't more recognized, that the work wasn't more recognized.
That's true.
That more wasn't. So that's how I came to be so close with Clara, I think. Joe sometimes would be working with me on something, and I can remember more than a dozen times when he would be working, and then he would lose interest in what I was doing, or he would become annoyed with me, and he'd go like this, and he would just turn and walk away. Well, then Clara, God love her, she's the one I really want to talk about a lot because she was so wonderful. Then she would come and say, "Come, I show you what he means."
But he was like that with a lot of people.
Oh, I know.
And she would always come along. People would get angry and start to run out the studio, and she would run after them and talk to them and make them come back. So it wasn't just
smooth the ruffled feathers.
It's just the way. But I feel that people who create things don't like to teach them.
Well, that's
no. I mean, it's a
true,
repetition. Yeah. I've created it.
Well,
I think it's good. Or blah 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 blah. However, he still always wanted men to do his work.
Yes, I know.
I see all these ladies, and I'm wondering, you know, Pilates is in, and still, it doesn't attract men as much as he wanted it to.
No.
And so I always feel a little sad that somehow men.
Yeah.
In general, unless they get hurt or something, or their wives, the boys here, the male dancers here, they're not as dedicated to coming to the class as much as the girls are.
Right.
And they theoretically need it more.
Yes, you know, in Los Angeles, I had a happier experience with that. I had more men coming. I think because. The actors, and I had some writers, I had some producers, I had a couple of psychiatrists. Those are terrific to work with. But I did have more men, a lot more men than you would see in New York. But I think it's just because they were more body conscious, and also I taught a class for a while. I used to teach it at 20th Century movement for actors, or for film actors, because you moved quite differently for film than you do on the stage, as you know very well. But it was really Clara who began to, little by little, take me over. And we spoke one time about this, which I thought was very interesting. She very much of the spiritual element, which I use a great deal, the divinity of the mechanism, the wonder and the gift and the awe of being able for our bodies to do these wonderful things, and Clara stressed that, and Joe never did. Do you remember that at all?
Well, it always depended upon what time of the day, and how he felt. And there were times, like, I know when I got a lot out of him. I know my friend Lolita San Miguel, he had her in the afternoons and he had me in the morning. And there weren't that many people around.
Right.
And so there were times when he like most people who teach, it was just unbelievable. And there are times when you have to teach and you don't really want to teach.
Yeah.
I mean, he was still very much of a human being. But I find that I think more than anything, was the disappointment of his work that was never accepted by men or by the community or by the medical profession.
Right. And it was very sad to go in and see that large studio and maybe see 2 people or 3 people in there. When it was those of us who understood it. And I wanted to go back just for a second and say, like you, when I first went in that studio, it really spooked me. I thought, what kind of place? It looked like a medieval torture chamber, you know. But it took me, as I said, about 3 minutes of lying on this reformer and putting my feet there and getting the bones imprinted on there. And that feeling was so wonderful. And of course, this still is so intriguing to me, that you can work your body while in a supine position against the tension of the springs without your body weight over an injured part. So you can really learn to be on your center totally. Just that concept, just alone, was brilliant.
One of the things that bothers me, though, is people who make the machines change. So I can't do.
Of course, yeah.
I mean, the exercises. This is an original created by Mr. Pilates. They have green springs and blue springs and yellow springs, and he had all 4 springs of the same elasticity.
40 pounds, I think.
Yeah, they were even. They weren't A's
absolutely.
and B's and C's and D's
Mine
and
is
E's.
still, mine is like
Yeah,
that still.
so I sometimes wonder if the people who make these machines ever did the exercise.
Well, I had, Balanced Body, who makes my things, Ken Endelman. I said to him, you ought to study this work a little bit to know what the hell you're doing. But I think that where it went wrong, and I still have a lot of enemies out there because of this, a lot of the physical therapists...
They changed everything.
Because they didn't know the syllabus.
Yes.
And they didn't know that what they're trying to do is coming later.
That's right.
It's going to be there later.
They did change
So they
a
would
lot.
add a screw here, and they would add a bolt
they
over
did.
here.
They
The
did change
trap
it.
table of the Cadillac got to be a joke. It had so much stuff hanging on it. And I said to Ken one time, my God, you've got everything on it but a hairdryer. So he actually sent me, for my birthday, a reformer from the original design. And it's in real red leather and whatever. And it was for my, I don't know, 75th birthday, 10 years ago. And so he said, you don't have to worry about a thing. They're going to bring it. They will set it up wherever you want it set up, and da-da-da-da-da. So they set it up, and then there was another box. And I opened pulled out the other box. Well, by God, there was a thing there that slid under, beautifully worked out and engineered, and you could pull it out, and there was a coffee cup that he sent that had little red little red peppers on it, and then a hook over on the back on the outside with a hair dryer. And so it's a joke, you see, because I said it's got everything but a hair dryer. So I called back and I said, yes, but where's the phone? But I do think in general that so many of the things that I look at, I think, what is that for? And sometimes I've had to say, I'm sorry, I don't know what to do with that. It had so many things, different, that they brought about. So it's like everything else, it's like the technique itself. It becomes bastardized. When it becomes hot, then everybody starts to make little fusses with this, and then it gets changed. The equipment gets changed, and it's all very sad. But it's wonderful, and it's one reason that I wanted us to sit down and talk. I think Jim last night said it. He said, I said something about I love talking with Kathy, and he said, well, you and Kathy are the truth. You speak the truth of the work. And I think that's just lost, and I think oftentimes it's from people who don't know, and they don't know they don't know. And those are hard ones to deal with.
Well,
I see more of them than you because I'm out in the world, and some of the people who come to our workshops, it's pathetic what they don't
I
know.
can't always blame the instructor on the basis of, because people are in a hurry. It's they want to learn it real fast.
Oh yeah.
And so it's sort of like if you want to pay the rent, you kind of
I understand.
give in a little bit. If you can maintain the integrity and still teach and still pay the rent, that takes an awful lot of working and so forth. So
I understand
I'm lucky
that
here.
concept. Yes, you are.
I'm lucky here because
are
I
lucky
don't
here.
have to do that.
That's right.
You see, so I can maintain the thing that I'm doing. I feel is that in teaching the students here, I do maintain the integrity of the Pilates system.
I've often said that. I
Yeah.
said I kind of envy
Yeah.
Kathy because she's over there in her wonderful little sandbox, and she is able to teach exactly the way she wants to teach, and the people who come are totally dedicated to learning exactly that. We get a strange mix.
No, you're wrong, because when I first started teaching here, if I said how many people know Pilates, I remember one hand.
Oh,
Right? Now,
yeah.
Blossom said to me, don't say how many, who hasn't done it, one hand.
Uh-huh.
That's the difference. However, what I have to do is subtly, without blaming the teacher. I can't blame the teacher nor the student, because sometimes you don't explain as well as a teacher, and sometimes the student doesn't hear it, or they miss an important day of instruction. And so I subtly bring them back to what the truth is without insulting anyone, saying, "Who did you learn from it?" I don't knock anyone. You know what I mean? I don't say this is bad or this is good, or where'd you learn it, blah, blah, blah. I try and rearrange the thinking of it.
Well, I must say that I try that to a certain extent, but I'm not nearly as patient as you are. And I often just say, where in the hell did you get that? I mean, some of what they bring to you sometimes is just, it's so terrible that I just want them to go away. Because they haven't got the, and so the instructors, I think, that's what's sad about it. Is that
Well, it depends upon who
there are
taught
too many
them.
instructors who are not.
Well, it depends upon what you give the student, how you put. If you're in it, what's happened to Pilates a little bit is the certification.
Oh, yeah.
People in and out,
Oh, yeah.
in and out. That's where it started going wrong.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Absolutely.
That's when it started going wrong.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
And so everybody wanted, I mean, they pushed it that way. You had so
Yeah.
many times to study. It cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
then you had to give so many hours. People weren't there to instruct you.
Absolutely.
So
Well,
there's a fault from all of us, in a way.
What bothers me is that there are really more so-called teachers out there almost than students, because I've had people call me and say, how long do you have to study before, or they don't say study, train, or how many days or how many hours before I can get, before I can teach? Mm-hmm. Well, in my day, you didn't go to learn to teach, you went to study, and then eventually maybe you got to the point where you could teach the work. But it's totally different now. I mean, when it gets to the point where you can get a certification on the internet.
Really? I don't have the internet. You can get certified on the internet?
That's an unbelievable thing. Yes, you can sign up for this thing. They send you a kit. Isn't this? You remind me how this goes. They send you a kit. Now, what the kit consists of, I don't know. There can't be a reformer. There can't be very much in the kit, but it supposedly makes you understand, it helps you understand the work. Then you have to pass the test. But here's the part that I liked very much, is that for an extra $120, you can get the answers to the test. Doesn't that sounds like fiction, doesn't it?
I don't quite believe it.
Well, it's true. It's true. I didn't believe it either. But no, because
But I have to tell you something about Mr. Pilates, okay? When I went to him, you know the hanging?
Yes.
You know? Mm-hmm. Okay. He put me, your feet, you're upside down, and your feet are in those little straps. And he said, I'll be right back. He never came back. And I struggled. I had to go to work, and I struggled. And in struggling, I made the ropes tighter.
Oh, yeah.
I was panicking.
Twisted,
I kept twisting and twisting, and I moved, and I did this. And finally, I calmed down, and came.
Oh, that's funny.
He still hasn't come back. He forgot all about me.
Left you hanging.
He absolutely left me hanging.
I love doing that. I loved learning the hanging. But the way that they build some of the Cadillacs or trap table, I love his story about the Cadillac too. The PTs have added so much stuff up there, and bars and whatever, that it's hard to get your feet into those webs in order to hang. There's something poking in your back.
Oh, I see.
Whatever.
Yeah, it's clear here.
So I've run across that quite often. But the Cadillac, I will never forget going over there. And I would ask him, Joe, I remember this too. Well, Joe, what is this for? He would show me something. It's for the body. Mm-hmm. Do it. Just do it. And I think that was one of the best things. And I think now we have too much explanation of what it's for. It's for this muscle, and this muscle goes to this, all of this clinical, I call it physiobabble, that they go through. The pelvic floor. Well, where's the pelvic floor?
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Please don't worry about the pelvic floor. You're going to go nuts, okay? Just leave me alone.
No, I do. I just
You're going to
say,
go absolutely nuts.
I say, I could show you with these two fingers.
Stop.
Get on it. Just get down on it. But they do carry on a lot about all these clinical terms. But I did say to him once about on the Cadillac, Joe, what is this? Why do you call this the Cadillac? And they said, because it's got everything and it does everything.
That's right. Because in his day, the Cadillac was the car, luxury car.
Yes.
So when he named this the Cadillac,
that was his.
It meant was his greatest.
God love him. I wish he had had a Cadillac. I wish they'd had more.
He said he called it Cadillac.
Cadillac. Yeah.
Cadillac. Yeah, because he put an A in there.
Yeah.
But no, I felt really sorry because no one ever really appreciated. It's a shame that they appreciate him now that the man's dead.
Oh, yeah.
But the doctors, I remember when I went to him, and I didn't understand him, because I went to him, I showed him my injury, and he just exploded, and he went on and on and on, and I thought, what have I done? What he was angry at is they had operated, the doctors, on my leg, 2 operations in 1 year with no rehab.
Right.
I learned afterwards that he was furious at them, and they had no respect for him, because I remember him telling a doctor that you kept people in the bed too long.
Yes.
Too long. They should get up and move.
Yeah.
Of course, now they do that, but then they kept you in bed for 10 days, 2 weeks, without moving at all, So I know he was, and the other thing is, no matter, I see all these women doing Pilates, and they're fine, but I know in my heart of hearts that he really wanted men to do it. He created it for the military, right? And I have always seen him stand slightly like this, and I've been doing Pilates for years, and a young man came in here who was not a dancer, he was just a friend of mine. So he wanted to see the place, and he came in, and he looked at Mr. Pilates, and he said he was a military man. I said, his stance, that's a military stance. I always thought it was first position. It's a military stance. I asked my husband, who was in the Navy, that's a military stance. And he always stood that way, But it took all of these years, and I went to him in the 50s, to realize that the way he stood all the time was not the dancer's first position, it was a military stance. So it gives you a whole different feeling about some of the things that he did, if you really, truly believe that he created it for the military.
Well, I didn't have that kind of discovery or awareness until I spoke with you. We talked about that at one point.
Well, but he used to be so very precise, because I can remember when I first learned the jackknife, you used to come off the thing and stand like this, and you got on the thing, put your feet up, boom.
Yeah.
Well, I meant military in the sense it was precise.
Yeah.
You had to take your foot, put it up, take it down. There wasn't this
oozing.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
Was it?
Right. No.
No.
No. Well, the other thing was, of course, all of those things, and we teach very much like that. I like to sometimes give it a kind of a lyrical, nice move, but then I like to change the drama a little bit. I like oftentimes to move very quickly, very sharply, and stepping. Sometimes on the reformer, the work rather, I call it with a kind of an attack, an attack and release.
Just say I've updated it.
Open and come down. Beg your pardon?
You've updated it.
I've updated it.
Yeah, because I do the same thing. I put my little jazzy things in there just to give a little update it, bring it to life. You know what I mean? And I make fun.
Yeah.
I have fun. I teach my students to have fun in a way.
That's what it
because,
should be.
Well, this is my theory, and it's either taught like McDonald's or Kentucky Fried Chicken, or it's taught like Billy Graham. And somewhere in between, it's both. You know what I mean? So.
Well, I think that it is a work, and as Clara said to me, we have only touched the tip of the iceberg. There's far to go with this work. I've often said I wish that Clara had lived another 10, 15 years. I wonder whether she would have just kept that syllabus exactly that way. I often think that she might have moved on or worked with other people to.
But you
I
have
don't
to,
mean to change it, but like
you have to remind
variations on a
You have to
theme.
remind the people that she always wore a white uniform and she never demonstrated.
I
but
know.
verbally,
Oh yeah. Now
she could tell you more verbally than he could demonstrate.
Absolutely. And with these two fingers, the way she would
Yeah,
just
very quiet.
touch you here.
But she never
touch you here.
demonstrated. She wore
Now,
her
did you
white-
ever see her on on a reformer?
No.
I never did either.
I've never seen her out of the white uniform.
Well, I have. I used to go. I'd go after I opened my studio in Los Angeles. I would go back to New York every once in a while, and I would to take her out to dinner, and it was so sweet. She had, I think she had 2 dresses.
Probably.
And so she would put on this little dress. It had little flowers on it, I remember, and a little hat. And the hat had a little flower on it and little white gloves. And she would say, "Oh, I have a date. I have a beau." and we would go to dinner. And that was just the most amazing thing for her. But outside of that, I never saw her outside of the little nurse's uniform and the shoes. But I wondered, she must have worked on that reformer.
I have
at
never
some
seen
point.
Clara out of a white uniform. But the thing I remember, as a couple, a married couple, they really understood each other. It's really great because as he got older, you know, he would get a little itchy, kind of. You know? And so she'd say, "Don't pay him an name out. He can't do nothing."
I know. I know.
Wouldn't she say that?
I was
She
going.
said, "Don't pay him any money."
I'm glad you said that. I was going to tell that woman who, sorry, from Pilates Style, who called me yesterday to talk about. She wanted all my stories about Clara, and I said, "Well, I'm not going to get into stories about Clara. I'm happy to tell you that I just think she was a brilliant disseminator of his work.
She was.
And every creator needs that. And but she was.
She was.
And I said she also taught from kind of a spiritual point of view. So she gave it a different meaning to me. As I said in my bio, I had just joined Alcoholics Anonymous, and I was getting sober. And part of my therapy, between AA meetings and Clara, that was my therapy. And so, along with the acceptance of the more spiritual aspects of myself, she added to that because she was a very spiritual woman.
Yeah, because she would often come behind your ear, touch your shoulders,
Yeah.
and say, "That's all right.
Yes. Yes.
Just think,"
Yeah.
or "Let go.
Yeah.
You don't have to be so tense." You know.
Yeah, I remember
So
her doing that
yeah,
with
she
the
would
shoulders.
always touch you on the shoulder and kind of make you relax, or she would be running out of the door to bring back.
Try to drag them in. Well, you know what struck me too as time went on, and I spent more time studying with them and also working with Martha, how much, let's say, how much they were looking for the same thing. There was a certain truth about movement that they were looking for. Martha's contraction, for instance, you know, the contraction release. When I applied that to stomach massage, for instance,
It's the same.
that's absolutely beautiful. But most people don't understand that, so they do this on stomach massage. They let all this fall down. The same thing with short spine. They let the butt come down and then bloop, then the rest comes down. When you saw Joe do short spine, you could feel every vertebra coming down on front. I'm sorry that I missed being there when Eve was there. Did you know Eve well?
I knew Eve well, more or less. The funniest thing is when you went to Pilates, you went with a certain group of people. You knew them, but you didn't know them. You know, because
Yeah,
most everyone would come in and work and leave, and you went your place, and they
Yeah.
went to their place. And so they were sort of your group,
Yeah.
but you really didn't know that much
right.
about her. I knew of her since she was a dancer.
Uh,
As a dancer, you know. What I try to do when I teach is not to let Eve be forgotten
Oh, absolutely.
Corolla Tria.
Well, I didn't know.
No, what I mean is
Absolutely.
I have certain of their movements that I put in the repertory of the Pilates, you know. But I'll say, this is Eve Gentry, or this is Corolla Trier.
I quote them all. Well, I didn't know very much about Corolla, but I quote Eve when she used to say, it's not enough to just look, you have to see. And you talk about listen. Listen. There's a lot out there to hear, but you have to listen. And so those things are quite beautiful. And they are, as Clara used to say, part of the ABCs of the work. And those are the subtleties that really make the work, that separate it from a movement program and an exercise program, or a workout. You know, people who come in for a workout. I had a lot of those. Goldie Hawn was one, God love her. I love her dearly. But she wanted to work out and sweat, so she would miss
But
a
it's
lot.
probably why men don't take to it. It is a workout, but it has a different kind of vocabulary. And it's not all macho. But one of the
it can be.
It can be because one of the things that men never understood about the machine is when the weight is down, it can't move. So when they see some little lady, you know, weighing 100 pounds, doing all the exercise, they get very frustrated, but they don't realize when you go down, the wheels can't move, you know. So I always say, think of sitting on hot sand, in a hot car. You sit and don't sit, right?
Right?
No.
Yes. Oh, that reminds me too, yes. Clara said something like that. Well, she said, yes, this is not a machine. This is your partner. You work with this. You don't work on it. You don't work at it. You work with it. This is your partner. And so when you lie down, you don't lie down. You know, and that's just, those are the little subtle things that are hard to teach some people. Some people just never get it. And but several men would say to me, "Oh, that's for women." I said, "Bullshit. Let me show you something." And I would excuse me. Let me show you something. So I'd give them something that they couldn't do.
I know.
They couldn't begin to do. Well, you've had that experience, you know. And so some little girl can
it's true.
you know, do it because they know how to use, they know where the power comes from.
You know, basically speaking, a man tends to go down when he does things. So when they go down, the wheels can't. That's what I just make them aware of. If the wheels can't, it's like your grocery cart. If it's too heavy, you can't, the wheels can't turn. If it's not evenly balanced, you know what I mean? But I remember Mr. Pilates being one day I went there and it was early in the morning. It's actually the last time I really saw him. And he was very, very tired, and it was kind of like he was giving up a little bit.
I saw
because
that.
other things came in and took over, you know, other forms of exercises. And Clara went to him and took him in, you know, wrapped her arms around him. And that's the picture I'll always remember, because she just said, "It's going to be okay, Papa," because she always called him Papa. Yeah.
Oh, that's very touching.
Yeah, that's the last time I saw him. And then when she was sick, I went to the hospital to see her, and she said, "I'm tired.
Yeah.
I want to be with Papa." And I knew I'd never see her again.
I was saying about visiting Clara in the hospital, and I felt so special in Clara's life, I put quotes around that, that I thought when I go in there and put my hand on her hand and squeeze her hand and say, Clara, Clara, it's Ron, that she's going to open her eyes and it's going to be like the ending of those old MGM movies, you know. Oh, there you are. Oh, yes, let me take you away now. And so we're off into some wonderful Never Never Land. And I was shocked nothing happened. I mean, the poor baby, oh God, it was so sad to see the way she was just totally out of it. But that's, I remember that, and that, oh God, that was so very, very sad.
Well, I remember my remembrance of her as she was in bed and very pale and very fragile. And they could never say my name, which was Kathleen. So he named me Kay. He just didn't want to deal with the TH.
Yes.
So I was Kay to them. And so she said, Kay, I want to be with Papa. And I knew that I would never see her again.
How wonderful. Well, that's a wonderful last memory, and to see her embracing him and to hear that. Because, yes, their feeling for one another was, even though he was not, I don't think in general he was as much of a communicator and probably showed as much, but who knows when they were close together, but their feeling for one another was palpable in the studio. You could feel that connection. Well, I remember some delicious moments with you, I remember the first thing that was interesting to me was with Eve. I went to something, it was before we were setting up a program at St. James Hospital, you know, in San Francisco. We were the first people to...
St. Francis, that's what
St. Francis, right. And what is the doctor's name?
Garrick.
Dr. Paul Garrick, marvelous man. And we set up a little facility there. And so there was a gathering, and Eve was there. And so we were talking, and I said, I have something that I have to tell you, and I'm afraid you're going to yell at me. Because, and she said, what is that? So I said, well, I've changed the order of the footwork, because by that time I had worked with some people with hip replacements and with hip problems and whatnot, and I just didn't like the idea of starting with a slightly turned out position on a bad hip. So I wanted to start, and I had also created what I called the prehensile toe, because in those shoes that they used to wear, the curled toe, I never quite knew what it was. So I started with a curled toe, and then the knees close together, because Clara used to do that to me. She'd put her hand in, squeeze my hand, and in order to engage those muscles and the muscles further up into the crotch of the body. So I said, I start with that, and then I do flex foot, then I do the turnout position, then I do high releve. And she looked at me and she said, I've been doing that for 10 years. And I said, oh, thank God, because I thought maybe she'd say, you can't do that. That's sacrosanct. You can't fool around with it. But that was one of the things. And then the breathing, he used to say a lot.
In the air.
Joe used
out
to
the air.
Yeah, you got
That's
the
it.
out the air, so
Or
you can
in the air. That was it.
And then he would say, breeze, breeze. But it was never clear to me when and how exactly. And maybe at one point it had been, but he just didn't take the time to tell me that. And I had, as a dancer, I don't have to tell you, we're always trying to get more air, more oxygen into the body. So I went away and devised the percussive breathing thing. And then we met one day in New York, and I think it was when that trial was going on, and I came to New York for that, and you had already done your thing there. And I asked you if we couldn't meet and have coffee, and so we did. and we started talking about the percussive breathing. I remember that so clearly. Now, the way I see it is the lungs opening and closing, and these, because Joe said in body contrology, every muscle has to be used. The supporting muscles that support the outside muscles, etc. So that means you need to use the intercostal muscles and whatever, open the rib cage. And so you had thought about all this, and you said, yes, I do. But then you explained to me,
Mine
and
was
I've talked
accordion.
well, or the ball. You spoke to me about a ball once.
Well, I think it was down.
And you said like they had to place a ball inside here, and you take the air in, and the air has to go all the way around the ball.
It was down here, the ball.
Oh, okay. And then the exhale
Down here, the ball. That's right.
comes all the way out of the ball. Well, I've told that story over and
But
over
just
and
put
over
it
to
down
my
here.
classes. Well, mine has
It's
to be
impossible to put a ball. No, what I do now is with the breathing, and I find the reason I've changed things is because more people are doing yoga. And yoga breathing and Pilates breathing are not compatible.
No.
So when they have yoga Pilates, that just drives me nuts. It's just, it's not compatible.
No.
So what I try
they don't
not
breathe.
to, no, when I'm teaching, I don't waste my time by saying, don't do that, don't do that. I give them something new.
Yeah.
And that's the accordion breathing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Well, I think
It's the
of that.
same, but I
Right.
mean, but it's much easier for these people to see
think of
the
opening.
accordion,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
But the ball breathing is you put the ball in here, you breathe straight through it, and then you breathe around it. And I sometimes tell, if I'm working with the students, to think of a contraction with the breath
Yeah.
rather than
Well,
with
yeah,
the
because
body.
then it gets
Because
down
then
into
it goes
those low
around.
belly muscles. Absolutely.
Yeah. But
You
I
see,
have a
isn't that
song.
wonderful
I have
that
a
it makes-
song I made up.
Yes.
You want to hear it?
Yeah.
Okay. Got it? Take the zip. Come on. Sit up. You zip.
Zip.
Yeah, is that how you zip? Fast like that?
Depends on where.
No man zips that fast. No man zips or buttons that
Oh
fast.
no, I was thinking of that.
Oh, yes, honey. Let's go. Let's zip. You zip. Yes. Right. Now, my next thing is belly button to the lowest part of your waistline.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You put a belt on.
Yes.
That pulls you out of the hips.
Yes.
A vest is just an elegant piece of cloth,
Yes.
isn't it? And through here is the tape measure under the breast. Right? And then you just float. Just float. If
Okay.
people don't know how to float, I say think of sitting on hot sand.
Yeah. Yeah. Then
So
you
that's
float.
my song.
Well, I'm going to come back often and float with you on that one. Yeah, I need a little work on that one. But the other thing that was interesting to me was my towel work, which I devised just to get originally just to get to people to hold their hands up straight, make a straight line, and get it in the back of the head, and then Kathy started doing, and I love it. I don't quite know how, but she get one of the magic towel. Get Ron's magic towel, and doing that work. The other thing is the closing with the port-de-bras.
Yeah.
That, oh God, that was such an affirmation for me, and made me feel so
Yeah,
good.
it makes the students feel good.
It really does.
They know your name,
It
even if they
finishes
don't.
it finishes everything out.
Yeah, it really
And it's
does.
so beautiful, and I'm so glad that we have come to share that and to
Well,
share
I
that
like
with
the
other
percussive
people.
breathing. I can't do it as the way you have designed it in your work, but I can't think of a better tribute to you
Me either.
than having the students go shh.
Absolutely.
It
And
either come up and go down or up and come down. And yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the way we
And
end.
I'm so grateful to you for doing that. I'm so grateful. It means so much to me to have you, and you know how I admire you, and someone of your stature and your knowledge of the work to take them. But it's also a wonderful thing because it means
Well, no. What it does is bring the whole class together.
yeah, it closes.
It closes. It's
Close.
yeah, and it's not a finish. It's like thank you.
Yeah.
No.
But you see, it also shows to me what a generous teacher you are, and also what you continue to be a student.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's so wonderful to me. I try to do that too. I try to keep learning, and now I learn from various students and whatever. And I watch and I say, how is that doing like that? Well, maybe if we did this. So I think and I'm grateful for that because it keeps the work alive.
Yeah, they have Eve Gentry, Ron Fletcher's, sometimes Dunham, Dunham Isolation.
Wonderful.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't want, because even though they teach dance history, they don't always include many people. They
Right.
say Graham or what's his name? Merce Cunningham, you know. And there are others,
Yeah.
you know. So I like to keep it, I keep Corolla alive. I do certain things
Yeah.
so that this is Corolla's swan. I'll show 3 swans, Mr. Pilates, Corollas, etc. And the thing that I disagree with in many of the people, and they're the older teachers as well, there are those of us remaining who work with Mr. Pilates who change or make up things and don't say, I've changed them. I think that's unfair.
Yeah.
I mean, if I change something, I'll say. Like I say Ron Fletcher's percussive breathing, right? Or I'll say Eve Gentry threading the needle, or Corolla's this.
Yes.
And I think if you make up something, which I think you should, because you can't have this and
Well,
just stick to it,
yeah.
if people would be honest
Yeah.
and say,
Well, I've often said what I've done a lot of times with some of the basic work is to create a variation on a theme, because just by nature I am a choreographer. I've always wanted to create work, so I'm not happy just doing. But I make sure when I work something out that I have to make sure over and over and over I do it until I know that it's organic and that I know that it's coming from the genesis of the work. And what's interesting is, to me, as I said before, to find out how closely Joe and Martha were working, even though they were like that, but how one fed the other.
but they lived across the street
I
from
know.
each other.
I know.
In,
But the work, if it feeds one another beautifully, her contraction release.
But
So,
what I've done, the way I teach now, is I look at myself, I look at my times, and I keep updating it, and I realize that it's computers, you sit, cell phones, distorts the body. I can think of all of the things that have, kind of distorts the body. And I cannot see teaching the 100 when people don't understand their
No,
bodies.
no.
So what I've created is called Before the 100. It's sort of like a fighter. He trains himself. I mean, all the other athletes, the 100 is really the program. I don't want to spend half of my life teaching the 100 and everything. I want them to know their body so well. I can just go into the 100 rather than breaking it down in each. I think it takes away from it.
Right.
So what I've been doing is getting them strong by creating exercises before the 100. So that when I get ready to teach the vocabulary, I don't have to break it up and destroy it. And I think it's been working pretty well. I get them real strong because they're not strong because of their lifestyle today. It's not their fault. It's
No.
it's
well,
just the
also
way
I
things
think
have
when
been
it teaches,
created.
when they come too quickly and are given too quickly, it creates that that lordotic arch because they're not strong enough through here to get that arch, to get those vertebrae down. Well, darling, I don't know. I could talk all day long and all night long. There's so many things that there are to talk about. I have to repeat it. It's my great pleasure and joy to be here with you today. You know, there's a wonderful Yiddish word, kvel. Do you know what the word is, to kvel? The opposite of that is to kvetch, but I'm not kvetching, I'm kvelling to be here with you.
No,
And
well, you know.
I would like...
We're gypsies underneath.
Yeah, I know. Isn't
Real
that wonderful?
gypsies.
Isn't that wonderful? Two old gypsies.
Two
Here
old
we are,
gypsies.
still doing our thing. I would like to introduce the people who are so helpful to us. Okay? I'm so grateful.
My people are Blossom and Clara.
Yeah, let's come up. Come on up. Blossom and Clara,
They're my right hand.
they're your right hand.
Right and left. Who gets to be left?
And here they are.
Should we get low?
And then I have two also, Pat Guyton and Kyria Sabin.
I should have a collection.
And I always say, without whom, without whom, I'm not sure I would get it done every day. You know, sometimes have to remind me that I didn't do something.
Are you getting forgetful too?
Oh,
It's
me?
disgusting, isn't it? It's disgusting.
Well, I
It's
remember the
unfair.
vague outline, but sometimes I forget some of the little things. Yes.
It's
And
unfair.
then they'll say, sometimes Pat, in trying to bring, she'll say, what? and I should get annoyed. Either tell me or leave it alone. You know, what is it? Well, we used to.
I get stuck and I look at Blossom and she'll go.
I give her a little motion, a little hand motion.
Well, they try to do that too, but I don't get it. You know?
I know,
So,
but
well,
she-
what is it? What is it? Come on. But yeah, it's.
No, we're a very good team because now this is in the early stages. She said, well, I thought you were thinking. You know,
She'd be gasping for breath, and I thought she was taking a moment to think. Yeah, maybe take over Blossom.
that's right. Now we got it down pat.
Yes.
Well, it's a terrific responsibility for them, and I appreciate it very much, and it's wonderful to have them. So,
And I appreciate mine.
There we go.